Thank the Force. We're back Thursday night. Star Wars News Net Live is here. We're going to give our final Andor Season 2 predictions because next week, hopefully, we'll have a brand new Mando Grogu trailer to talk about and some fun movie stuff to get into right before, everything starts taking off with Andor. Plus, next week, some people are going to be having already seen the first episode or two, I'm sure, because I guarantee you they have some surprise, some fun screenings for people next week. So, to those people, I say I'm jealous of you for your time at Star Wars Celebration, but we'll just keep trekking along over here for now. I was thinking about this, and I want to get your opinion on this, Tom. This is big. For those of you hopping in, thanks for being here. Welcome to Star Wars Newsnet Live. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button today. So I have a question. Do you think that there's a single person that's like watching Andor season 1 and is ready for season 2 that has not seen Rogue One? Like, is there a single person out there that's like watching this and then, Rogue, like Cassian goes off with K2 to get Jyn at the end of season 2, and that person's just sitting there going, man, so glad they made it out of this. I can't wait to see what happens next in their story. Oh, there's a movie with it. Like, is there a single person out there that is that unaware? I can't imagine that being the case, but I just want to know, do you think there's even a chance that that person exists?
I think there's always a chance. Considering that considering that we're almost a decade separated from Rogue One, and a lot of fans kind of came into the fold with some of the newer content, there's a chance that they may not have seen Rogue One. I don't know how it could have been missed. Obviously, we've been living in the fandom so long, but yeah, I think it's possible. And I think it's going to be a real great surprise for people that are following the story from the beginning.
I'm just like obviously so insulated into the Star Wars nerdum like fan sphere that the casual fan experience is beyond me at this point, and I try to get that from people I know, but I just cannot imagine someone sitting through Andor season 1, getting excited for the rev up for season 2, and being blissfully unaware of what happens in Rogue One. Like, if that person exists, like, I would love to meet them and sit and watch Rogue One with them, after they've watched the Andor, journey. I just think that'd be hilarious. I can't imagine that person existing, but
yeah, the chances are rare, but you never know. There are people that haven't seen the original trilogy yet, so
there's some random guy or gal out there that just happened to be really bored on Disney Plus one day and found this random Andor show, and it was on his For You. He's like, all right, sure, I'll give this a look. That's pretty good. This is interesting. And season 2, okay, all right. Whoa, this is a movie. What is this? Like, is anyone's Star Wars virginity being lost through Andor? I would be fascinated to know if there's a single person. Like I said, I want to meet them. I want to hang out with them. I want to get to know them. Like, let's go have a drink. I want to know how your brain works, that this was something that came to be. It'd be fascinating.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm sure there'll be those people giving reactions online of, some of those channels that kind of take off and go viral, or people that have never seen Star Wars and they want to react to it. So you never know.
I guess there is always hope. So today was a fun day. The cast was in London for a little premiere. There was some new stills that were dropped. So the best part of what I saw, and I should have put this on here. I forgot to upload this image. Is there's like a picture where if you cut it off, where after Denise Go, who plays Dedra Miro, and you just go down the line, it's all rebel like actors that play members of the rebellion, and then there's Ben Mendelsohn who plays Orson Krennic, and there's this looks like they're all like making like a goofy face or laughing, and then he's just kind of stone cold, just like delivering like a stone cold face card. And to me, that was like the definition of I showed up at the wrong party sort of thing. I mean, it was just which one of these does not belong with the other sort of picture.
Ben Mendelsohn really gets into his character. If you
Mhm.
recall at the celebration, I guess before Rogue One, he showed up in character in costume
Mhm.
and kind of walked around the room, serious tone, being Krennic. So
Yes.
I think he really enjoys that character a lot.
I cannot wait for Krennic scenes in Rogue One, and I never thought in Andor season 2, and I never thought that that would be one of my highest hype moments. After season 1, I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait." And then as soon as they announced that he was coming in, I was like, "Oh, all right, well, here we go." So, I'm excited. I love this. So, I'm ready to go ahead and lock in here and keep going. But before we get into our predictions, because tonight we're going to predict like who's going to die, who's going to live. We're going to predict who's going to show up, who's not going to show up. And then I have a special one, which is, most epic moment award that I want to hand out. Like who's going to have like the most badass, like epic moment of the series, I guess, or season. So before then, real quick though, if you missed and you've been wanting some book news, there was a bunch of book news that dropped from the publishing side of Star Wars today ahead of Celebration next week. The one that probably is going to drive instantly the most, eyeballs is Adam Christopher, who wrote the Shadows of the Sith novel. For any of you who read that a couple years ago, I had the pleasure of reviewing that one for Star Wars Newsnet. He's writing a Darth Vader novel, Master of Evil, and it's going to dive into Darth Vader's still journey, discover, immortality. So I'm absolutely excited for this. This comes out in November. You could, slap anything Darth Vader in front of me and I'm going to dive into it like, head first. But Tom, are you going to maybe possibly pick this one up?
I love Darth Vader stories. I love that period in between episode 3 and episode 4. And have you ever played, I don't know if played is the right word, Vader Immortal?
Oh my gosh. I want to play Vader Immortal so bad. My uncle has Vader Immortal. He said it's so much fun, and I have not been able to dive into it. I don't have like one of those sets in order to play. But if I were, give it $1,000 and I was not allowed to spend it wisely, not this, not that buying this is, not wise. For my tax bracket, it might be a little unwise. But if I was told you have to spend this on something fun, getting one of those like VR sets, VR things, so I can play like something like Vader Immortal. And like there's the new like pod, racing thing to
Right.
the game that comes out. So like whatever it is to like experience that whole Darth Vader vibe, I would love to do that. My uncle said it's a whole lot of fun to be a part of that.
I have to lend you my Oculus because that Vader Immortal experience was unbelievable. And the first time that you encounter Vader, and they talk about this, I think Star Wars released a video on either on YouTube or on the official channel about that experience of actually coming face to face with Vader. And let me tell you, it is a chilling experience the way that they do it in the game. But not just that, the story of Vader Immortal is very, very interesting. And I was hoping that some of the concepts in there would have made their way into episode 9. I think it came out before episode 9 was released because it deals with Vader's pursuit of cheating death, kind of picking up from episode 3 where there's all that talk about Darth Plagueis and how he was able to conquer death. So very compelling story in Vader Immortal. They actually explore that a bit. And I know they have touched on that in the comics, even though you're probably more caught up with the comics than I am. But Master of Evil seems very intriguing because it looks like they're going to pick up some of those concepts and plot points there. And how could you go wrong with that cover art?
So before I comment on that cover art again, I'm going to drop the image for a second because I do want to share a story with you. I think I've shared this on this particular show before, but I've never obviously, we have not known each other long. So I'm going to share this with you. And if we have any people listening right now that are super into video games, you'll appreciate this in a sort of sad, horrifying way. And when you mentioned like the bone chilling experience of like encountering Vader, there are some people that would be like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. And then there's the people like me who play Jedi Fallen Order with Cal Kestis, and you get to the end of Fallen Order, spoilers, and Darth Vader, is there, and your whole thing is to just try to run away and like survive. That's how you end the game. And I'm sitting there. I've been trying to beat what's her face, Scylla or whatever her name is. It's Trilla for 3 or 4 hours at that point. I'm exhausted. I'm so frustrated. I finally do it, and I'm like just pumping with adrenaline, and I'm like standing up now. And my friend, my roommate, he was just a glorious trooper. Like he goes, I'm gonna sit here and until the task is complete and watch. And he does. And then Vader shows up. We're like, oh, and I was like, let's go. And I charge him, and he does the whole like kills me in 5 seconds thing. And then that took me a second to realize, oh yeah, he's not gonna die. Like I can't defeat this guy. Like this is the part where I run away and like I thought of Shrek. And it was just a funny moment of when I charged headfirst into the face of certain defeat. When I was terrified though, I was terrified when I did that. It was gonna make me fight Trilla all over again. I was gonna be stuck for 3 hours. I would have probably rage quit for a long time. But as you can see, I'm not that great with video games. But this cover art is incredible. They are doing amazing with the cover art lately. We talked about in our Discord chat about the Revenge of the Sith novelization deluxe edition that's coming out and how beautiful that one looks. So they're absolutely killing it here. I'm really excited for this. Some Padme ties, like Manslayer said here in the chat. That's something I'm looking forward to. And then, of course, there was, a lot of Acolyte stuff that was in there, Art of the Acolytes, some of the concept art. But there's also like the Doug Chiang, like legacy of Star Wars, and then his like cinematic legacy, 2 giant like 800-page books that are going to come out. And I'm actually really excited for those as well. I mean, this is an Academy Award-winning artist we're talking about.
Right. It reminds me as a kid, just loving when I used to get the Ralph McQuarrie portfolio. They would have something similar, have all the art of, his beautiful art that he did for the original trilogy. So, and Doug Chiang has done some incredible design all the way from The Phantom Menace, all the way through the movies to The Mandalorian, and then beyond into different actually films and other concepts. And his work is really beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
I love Star Wars books, so this is going to be a good time. So we have a game we're going to play here. We're not just going to say, oh yeah, they're showing up, or oh no, they're not going to show up. No, we gotta make this into like a system here. So right now we're going to put some characters on the screen, and you're going to tell me how likely they are to show up, how you feel, how likely they are to show up in Andor season 2. But we're going to have, on like a Star Wars, scale here. So in terms of like most confident that you could possibly be, we're going to go with maybe the most, like, I like to think of in, Star Wars. We'll stick with movies here, like a very, almost irrationally confident character. So we're going to go Han Solo. Like if you were that confident, I'm a Han Solo level of confidence, right there. If you're kind of right in the middle, kind of a middling character, I guess, or a middling level of confidence, then you're going to be at Luke Skywalker, who, he has his convictions, but there's also a level of doubt, that Luke displays throughout his life. Of course, I can't kill my own father. He's, going back and forth. He didn't just go in and charge in like guns blazing. Of course, he even has The Last Jedi. We all know Luke. And then we're going to go with, we're going to go prequel, like Obi-Wan Kenobi for not confidence, because he is the master of the hold the brakes, pump the brakes guy. Like we're just going to chill. So we have 3 levels of confidence that we're going to display here. Han, Luke, or Obi-Wan. Okay, so Han, this guy's showing up. Luke, you're like, I'm in the middle on this. Obi-Wan, you're like, I'm feeling no. Are we ready to play the game? Are we locked in here?
We're ready. Never tell me the odds.
Okay, so we're going to start with Bail Organa I will say this is a Han Solo for me. Like I would like to lock this one. This in. Oh yes, Lobo, you're right. We're changing it up. Chancellor Valorum. He is now our no confidence, and that's so good. Oh man, the the only reason I wouldn't even want to use. We're going to use him because that's fantastic. The only reason I would push back against Chancellor Valorum is because there's part of me that even if I think there's no confidence, like I want to have a little confidence, but no, for the sake of the bit, Chancellor Valorum, no confidence in Chancellor Valorum. But I'm going to go with a Han Solo here. Most confidence, lock it in. We're going to see Mr. Leader of the Rebellion himself.
Tyler, I would be shocked if Bail Organa did not show up. Jimmy Smits has shown up in other Disney Plus shows, such as Obi-Wan.
Right.
It would make perfect sense for him to be there, and it would be great to see Mon Mothma leave the Senate through Bail's eyes and to see how the repercussions on him, because I believe he still stays in the Senate at this point. And then we see him also in Rogue One. So I think it would make perfect sense. Han Solo confidence, as you say. Like I said, I'd be shocked if he wasn't in Andor season 2.
Manslayer's going to give it with a Luke. I appreciate, maybe tempering our enthusiasm a little bit. The only thing that with Bale is, as much as I want him to be in there, there's a level of you have to really rein it back, because if you start peeling back the curtain too much, I feel like I'm just going to want more and more of what he's doing and what's going on with him. If you've ever read like the Princess Leia or Leia, Princess of Alderaan book, there is so much juicy lore there with how he constructs the rebellion, interactions with Tarkin, and how they are on Crate for a time. Like there's a whole bunch of cool tie-ins there. And so I would love to see some of that, but I think sprinkle him in like a, it's like a little hollow video. I will say like a hollow of Bale would count, as long as, he had to show up and do a scene, even if it's like a very short, he's in there for, 1 minute cameo and gone. Name drop, not counting a name drop, because he's not actually on our screen. Because I think Palpatine, just like in season 1, is going to get name dropped once again. But I would be at like Chancellor Valorum levels of no confidence that Palpatine's going to be in this show.
And it works for Palpatine, I believe, because his name drops are so powerful, and they were so powerful in Andor because of the seriousness. And when his name is mentioned, it has so much gravitas behind it. So we don't need to see him. I think a Palpatine name drop is more powerful than a Palpatine appearance in Andor. Now, and what I was saying before, I don't think Bail is going to play a huge part in Andor season 2, but I would be surprised if he doesn't show up at all in some capacity. But I think he will have a minor role.
All right, so that brings us to our next one here. We're going to put Mr. Galen Erso on the screen. Tom, you can lead us off. Are we going Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, or Chancellor Valorum? It's going to make me laugh every time.
I would say somewhere between the Chancellor Valorum and Luke. I think because Tony Gilroy is smart with how he is going to put or use some of these legacy characters or characters that were in Rogue One that are in this timeline. I mean, there are so many characters available to him, but I know that he's going to use ones that are really important. I think Galen Erso's story is told very well in Rogue One. I don't really think there's a need for him in Andor, but I'm not sure. But I just don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to show up.
I've seen a lot of people being pretty confident with this one. We have 2 Hans, we have an Obi-Wan. I don't know. I kind of am on the Chancellor Valorum Obi-Wan train with this one. And I really want Galen to show up. I just feel like there's so many characters that are going on here that we kind of have to pick and choose like how we're going to use. And if Galen's going to be in this, I don't think he can simply just come and go in 2 minutes. Like there's going to be like a mini arc there with him and Krennic that are involved. And I also have to think like, how much money would it cost to get, Mickelson there for a period of time as well? Like that's another, they've obviously raked up the funds for this show, but that's not an inexpensive, let's bring him in for, a few weeks sort of thing. So I'm a little curious to see if that happens. I would love for him to show up though, because we have the whole Death Star with Krennic arc. It's very possible that they easily work him in, but I think they're going to focus a little bit more on Krennic in it. And yes, I mean, the latest promo for Andor does have the daughter's name, but I think let's just go right into it. Like, could Jin show up in Rogue One? And that's a very, popular character that I think a lot of people are hoping shows up.
I'm between a Luke and a Han on this one because we're going to see Saw through the period that Jin, I think, is part of his group. So, the interesting thing about Andor season 2 is the time jump, in the season. So, obviously towards the end, she's not going to be with him anymore. But if we see him in some of the earlier episodes, maybe we'll see Jen. I mean, I hope so. It'd be it'd be nice to see her in there. I mean, the fanboy in me wants to see all of these characters come back.
Right, of course.
But, how will it be used? It's a little tricky with the continuity of Rogue One. So, but I'm fairly, like I said, middle of the road, confident Luke Skywalker, as you said, in your scale of Jin showing up.
I'm going to go lower into Luke, more of Luke's lost his faith in everything he believed in Luke for this, because I'm not quite sure narratively it's going to fit with what they want to do. The only reason I'm not really going Chancellor Valorum is out of my own, like you said, like fanboy, like would love to see, a Jin, brief moment as this show ends. I think the only way she really gets sprinkled in is at the end of the show. They're gearing up for Cassian and K2 to go to Albani to go break her out of like the camp that she's in. Is if they just do a quick thing over there where maybe it shows her getting processed or put onto the transport, or some level of lead up to where we first see her there as an adult in Rogue One. That'd be the only time that I really think that we're going to see her.
Yeah, I going back against what I was saying, I have to double check. I don't know if the timeline is really defined when she left Saw.
Is it like Rebel Rising? I think she would have been gone by now, or it's really, really dicey. But like they can always play with those book timelines, But like in Oscar said here, like we've already got Rebel Rising, but they have shown they're willing to bend the books a little bit. So I have a juicy one here. And I don't think any of these characters are going to show up, except for I think one of them will. I'm curious what you think. We know Mon Mothma is going to have to escape the Senate. She's going to leave. And we know that, the Rebels crew is the one who pretty much picks her up and, helps save the day on that. And they have a whole encounter. And we know that, they come and go from Yavin as well. Is there any chance we get a cameo or a brief shot of any one of the Rebels crew? I'm going to go, and this is going to sound nuts, I'm going to go Han Solo on this, because I think just like we saw Chopper just chilling in Rogue One, I think there's going to be some sort of little Chopper Easter egg in the show, and we're going to see him. Maybe, they're going to have like a Chopper go by, like when they're on Yavin at some point. It's also very possible, like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she's working on, Ahsoka, and she obviously is very close to the Star Wars franchise. It's possible they could have her there for 5 seconds for like a briefing she's a part of. I don't think anyone but those two would be possibilities. I don't think anyone but Chopper showing up, but I think we're going to have a brief little, Chopper moment where it's just maybe he's just sitting in the background, just like Rogue One. It's going to be super random. You probably miss it, the first several times you come in.
Yeah, it depends on how Tony Gilroy is approaching, I guess, the canon with Rebels, because I believe Mon Mothma joined them after she left the Senate. But for me, it would be, I don't know, it just seemed it would be kind of jarring to see them as we've seen them in, I guess, not just animation, but live action in Ahsoka. To me, it would be a little jarring, but I would understand. However, I think that you're on target more with seeing Chopper or the Ghost at Yavin.
Mhm.
I don't know. I would say if we saw any of the crew, my money would be on Hera. I know
Right.
she was name drop also in Rogue One.
Mhm.
So
I think she'll get name drop. Like, there's a good chance she might get a name drop, or we'll hear something about like Phoenix Squadron at some point in some sort of battle that might take place. I don't know. I have a feeling we're gonna see Chopper at some point. Like, just not
yeah,
gonna be a really random sort of thing, but that's fair. All right, this is not a person. This is just a location that I want to do. Will we see Jeddah at any point in the show? I mean, we know that that's where Saw Gerrera ends up at the time of Rogue One. In some of the shots from the trailers, he looks pretty much almost like he's on that Jeddah path of he's got the tubes out of him now. He looks much more scarred than he does in the season 1 of Rogue One or of Andor. So I'm curious to see, do you think we could end up back in the Holy City here for just any period of time, like Saw has made this his base?
well, it from one of the trailers, it looks like
It
that
looks
shot
like
of
it.
the Star Destroyer coming into Jeddah, and
Mhm.
I'm on board for that. So I would say 100% we're seeing it, and I'm on board because Jeddah is such a beautifully designed city and environment, and I love the way it was used in Rogue One. Maybe if Jeddah shows up, maybe we'll see Chirrut and sorry, I'm forgetting his name.
Sheridan Bays.
And Baze, right.
Mhm.
So, I think that would be really cool.
Okay, I hope we go to Jeddah. I think that in the that's in the trailer. Part of me just wonders, just like they used the deleted scene of Jin with, the in the like the trooper outfit, like the Imperial pilot, like with this. We saw that in the trailer, and that was like deleted footage from Rogue One. They put in as like a little hype thing. Like it wouldn't be surprising for me to see them do that again, where they kind of put Jeddah in there. It's like, hey, remember this place from Rogue One? This is the thing that leads into Rogue One. Like that wouldn't shock me if they did something like that. But I really think we're going here at some point for like a mini Saw moment, maybe when he's establishing his, little rebellion headquarters in this area. Like, I wonder if that's where we're gonna get. I had some Chirrut and Bays pictures. I'm not gonna pull them up right now. We can just talk about them right now. If we go to Jeddah, I think that there's a decent chance that we see them as well. But I don't want to pull like the gun here or jump the gun and like say we're gonna have a lot of these characters because the cast is so large, and I don't want this to turn into like, oh, this person's here, this
Fan
person's
casting.
here. So I'm gonna put it like a Valorum on those two and kind of leave Jeddah as more of a Luke.
Yeah, as much as I love those 2 characters, I don't really know of a reason why we need them in the show.
Mhm.
I believe we're definitely seeing Jeddah.
Mhm.
If that clip shows it, it's probably in the last quarter of episodes because Saw
Right.
is advanced in his, the way he looks in Rogue One.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. I mean, I would love to see more of Jeddah, but we'll see what serves the story.
Okay, I have a couple more, and then we'll move on to some live or die. Obviously, the big one himself. Are we seeing Vader in Andor season 2? I'm a Valorum on this, to be honest. I do not think that we're gonna see Vader.
I think I'm at Luke with this. I'm not. I have. It's not that I have no confidence or I'm fully confident. I'm kind of in the middle, and
Mhm.
I feel like because Tony Gilroy is in charge. If it was Dave Filoni, I feel like we would see Vader. He'd probably take up half of the show, and that's not a knock on Dave Filoni, but just the different approaches. I feel like we would see Tarkin more than we would see Vader, because I
Mhm.
feel like he would. Yeah, it's just I don't know what he has to do in Andor season 2 if they're going to use him on
Mhm.
any missions or any
Right.
to enforce anything. But I don't know what
He's
kind
got
of
other things
utility he
going
would
on.
have. Yeah, he has a
I
lot of other
agree.
things going
He's
on.
got a lot of other things going on, and we're gonna read, Master of Evil in November. He's got his whole, immortality journey. He's still going on, and all of that. So a lot of people think that Dedra moment was like the Force choke. I never thought that when I watched the trailer. Like I just kept thinking that maybe they want us to think this, but it's just, I thought she was having a panic attack. But I don't think Vader's gonna be in this just because that we are going to lead into Rogue One, and every season is going to have like an escalation in terms of the villain that's a part of it, because Vader is kind of like the ultimate villain, and he is over all of Rogue One. He's that looming presence that exists throughout the entire movie, even though you would argue Krennic, he's the main bad of the movie, but Vader's presence oversees everything. And I don't think they're going to squeeze him into this show. I think that there's ways that you can even hint at Vader without bringing him in. You don't want to answer to someone, other than me. There's ways you can threaten Vader and it'd be like, oh my gosh, just similar to when they name drop Palpatine in ISB meetings, and you're like, oh boy, like this, Yularen was talking with Palpatine last night about this. So we'll see if Vader does show up. I'm sure it's going to be epic and awesome, and everyone's going to love it. So I'm going to say a Valorum and hope that maybe I am surprised.
Yeah,
So,
I think one more thing about that. I think maybe a long shot, kind of like at the end of episode 3 where we saw Tarkin on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, maybe something like that, because he was used so perfectly in Rogue One, Vader was. And
right.
I don't know how they can top that, and I don't know what it would add to the story. The story is really about the rebels.
That's like the line that you have to find a way to thread here, because the line is the story is 100% about the rebellion and how do we bring this rebellion forth. But there's also, one of the most interesting parts of the story is, how the Empire reacts to, the rebellion, and what happens to a few of these Imperials that we've been following along, and how the Empire is going to kind of come down even harder. So you do want those moments where you get those behind the scenes. Like I loved the ISB meetings and where Dedra was planning. It's like we don't really get that a lot of times. We don't really get in these animated shows. It was a lot of in Rebels, we spend most of our time with the Ghost Crew, but we always go back and we have the moments where Thrawn is plotting or where Callus is plotting. And I don't want to lose that too much in the season as well. So this is going to be interesting. What about Senator Tinrapa here? And I'm curious if we're going to see her in the show. We got the brief sight of her in Bad Batch when she made her little appearance on the Senate floor. Of course, in Rogue One, she has the line of "You're asking us to risk everything on hope," to which that scene is just like my favorite in all of Rogue One, when you have all the leaders of the rebellion there, and it leads to Jin giving her, a little monologue about rebellion. So, are built on hope. If you give it into an enemy with this kind of power, you doom the whole galaxy, and I really think that they're going to find a way to put her in there. I'm going lock it in Han Solo for the Senator. I think this is an easy one that doesn't probably cost you much narratively. You don't have to spend a lot of time with her. She can just show up, be a part of a meeting, have a few lines, and you're like, oh, that's the person from Rogue One. Got it. See it. Move on.
Yeah, I think I would be kind of Luke Skywalker there again, because like you said, it would be an easy one to put in and to insert in any of the Senate scenes. I just don't know.
She, for whatever reason, there's those random characters. We talked about this on our Space Battles pod on Monday. There's like those characters that are not in Star Wars very much. They're like these little tiny characters, but they show up in the most pivotal scenes. And we were talking about that with the space battle characters. Like these space battles are so integral to Star Wars, and there's so many characters that are only in them for brief moments, but they impact you in some way. I have always loved, the way that she delivered her lines in in Rogue One, and the way this character was kind of a pivot point in that argument. Like she was kind of against, the rebellion going out and being a part of this. But I think her being against that, you could see that's what got the passion out of Jin to kind of step up and maybe sell, some of the others to join them, on Scarif. And so I would love to kind of see a little bit more of what those meetings look like in the rebellion when they're all together. And she's a part of that.
One thing I love about this whole Andor universe and Rogue One and so forth is that the Empire really seems scary. It's not kind of like the dynamic, I guess, in the original. Like there was a feeling that there really are a threat, and they'll stop at nothing to destroy you. And you see that in that speech, in that moment in Rogue One when they talk about it and realize that there's a lot for them to lose. So I know in this, there's a lot, as we segue maybe into the next conversation about who lives or dies, there is a lot to lose. And we'll see people probably make decisions or see the things that they have to give up to fight this battle.
As an audience member, I want to feel a level of dread and fear as I'm watching this. Like that should have this show should have a suffocating, claustrophobic feeling on every single person who watches, because you're so worried about the fist of the Empire closing in around you, at this time. Similar, like the Aldani arc is the best example of this, when they're marching up to get their plan ready, and every single time they hear a TIE fighter at the distance, just a single TIE fighter coming through, and you are absolutely mortified that this is going to be the time where they get discovered. And so I hope that this season, it seems like, is going to ramp that up times 10. And I can't wait to see how it's delivered. So I have two more, and we'll do really fast on these. One of them is for fun. One of them is like serious talk. Which one do you want first?
Let's do the fun one.
This is my boy. We talked about this guy on Monday. Admiral Raddus. Give me a Mon Cala. I need a Mon Cala in this show. Admiral Raddus is an easy tie-in to Rogue One to be a part of, some sort of rebellion meeting, some briefing as they're bringing together the different, splinter cells to form the organized rebellion. There's something about the way Mon Calas deliver lines in Star Wars, and I just think this would be awesome. My heart says Han Solo, but I kind of go to a lower tier Last Jedi Luke on this. But my heart says bring Steven Stanton in, let him do it.
I'm gonna say Luke as well, because I'm kind of middle of the road with Raddus. I would love to see him. I think that depending on how much time we spend on Yavin, that might answer questions for a lot of these characters. So I think Bale was probably going to show up there if he's not in Coruscant somewhere. Raddus, I think, could show up easily on Yavin. So I don't know how much time they're going to spend there, but yeah, I would love to see him.
Want to see my boy General Raddus. That's my guy. Oh, that's my guy. I get wanting to see Akbar. Okay, like I justice for Akbar always. We would love to see Akbar. But this is the Rogue One. I want to see, this is going into Rogue One. Give me my man Raddus. I just can't knock a guy for doing this. And then last one, Tarkin, Han Solo, right? I'm a Han Solo on this. I think he's gonna show up. Very very small, but he's gonna show up.
Again, I put him in the way I perceive it in the same ranking as Bale as far as characters. I'm pretty certain we're going to see. I don't know I think Krennic is going to do all of the heavy lifting, but I think Tarkin has to be over that or involved with that in some capacity. And it would be great to build on some of their competition with each other. I think that would lead really well into Rogue One. So I'm pretty confident we'll see Tarkin in some capacity.
I 100% am with you, especially Gorman Massacre. Given like the Legends lore with Tarkin and the Gorman Massacre, It seems like the perfect place for him to pop in. So now we're gonna move into the most fun part of the evening, which is live or die, death or life. And let's go ahead. Let's just start with some of the heavy hitters here, just to really pay our dues to some of the great ones that are going to be here. So let me go ahead, pull this one up. And, we've talked about this guy. We could do our deep dive of him right now. Luthen Rail, live or die. It's a lock for death, right? Like, we're locking this guy in to go out in a blaze of glory.
Yes, there's no way I think he's coming out of Andor season 2 alive. there's no way, because he's such a I mean, he's the architect of the rebellion.
Mhm.
And it's going to be so exciting to see how he gets all these disparate factions together to join forces. But what an amazing character. I'm going to be so sad to see it, but it has to happen.
It's one of those it's gonna be brutal to watch, but you're ready. Like, you're just ready to see what they bring to the table when he goes out. So about 6-7 months ago, Luke and I did this like fake mission podcast where he came up with like a mission parameters for us in the time of the rebellion that takes place after the first Death Star blows up. And at the time, when he gave me like different roles that we had to fill on this mission, and we needed someone that was great at like subterfuge and could, really, he's like a master spy. And I picked Luthen, and he goes, "You can't pick Luthen, like he's dead at this point." I said, "Not yet. Andor season 2 has not it come out yet. The man is still alive. As far as I'm concerned, he's living a happy, nice life after the Battle of Andor, and he rests peacefully until I see Andor season 2 in the late, spring in the summer. And then until then, though, he's just fine. So, unfortunately, I don't think that my squad for that mission will be able to enact their duties come once April is over, April, May. But unfortunately, that's okay. We will be okay. Any other final thoughts on Luthen? Like, where do you see the direction of Luthen's character going this season in general?
I think Tony Gilroy described him. He used that great term, accelerationist. And I feel like Luthen is going to fulfill his destiny by bringing all these, like I said, all these separate factions together that really, as Saw said, are lost because they were kind of on their own. They had no unity. And I hope that he, like you said, goes out in a blaze of glory, but I hope he gets to see that, what does he say in his monologue, that sunrise in a way? Like, I hope it's a poetic, amazing, beautiful death. That he gets some satisfaction to see that, hey, this rebellion is really coming together, and we can win this.
I would love for him to be able to have a win, go out on a win, and not going out in a this is hopeless sort of thing. Like, he feels hopeless at the time because of something that happens. Like, I want him to go out in a we did this sort of way, similarly to like how Jin and Cassian go out in Rogue One, which is they kind of have that belief that they did it. Like, it did get out. Someone was listening, and they die in a different way. I think Luthen's going to die a much different death than them. I don't think he's going to die hugging anyone out of this shared, companionship and this shared love of the journey that they just went on. But I think he's going to have a similar, I went out because there is still hope sort of vibes. But, it's right. Let's see a couple things here. I would love if he consciously played the villain for the rebels in order for them to unite. That's something that I could see. I mentioned this before. Like, I think that there's a chance that he pushes some of them like too far and puts himself on the outs a little bit. That could be something. Thinking he'll be betrayed and die in the hands of the ISB. Absolutely on the cards. What if, part of me wonders if the rebels come together and he's betrayed by the rebels that he puts together because they need him kind of out of the way at this point. Like, he's done his job, and he's like almost too like the helicopter parenting the rebellion.
Right. And we see Cassian say in Rogue One that he's done these things for the rebellion, saboteurs, spies, all these things that, he has to live with. And I feel like Luthen is going to, like you said, push him maybe a little too far, push him to do something that is going to be very morally gray. And it's going to, I think we're going to see some of the repercussions of that even go into Rogue One. So it's interesting. I think that Luthen, I foresee a really interesting arc for him
Yeah,
this season.
absolutely. All right, this one's interesting. What about Lita? Mon Mothma's daughter, Lita. This one is fascinating because you could really make a case both ways here. I'm going to say that Lita lives. I think it is more compelling of a story for Mon Mothma if her family isn't just wiped out by the Empire and she leaves. I think it's more compelling for her as a character as if she knowingly chooses the rebellion over her family, like over her daughter. Obviously, choosing the rebellion over parent is probably not any sweat off her back. But I do think that if she were to leave Lita behind, that would really cause a lot of chatter, from the fandom about Mon Mothma. And I think is healthy discussion. Like, oh my goodness, we've always been like, Mon Mothma, the great leader that she is. But is the rebellion worth sacrificing your own daughter to the hands of the Empire or abandoning her in order for the greater good? I'm fascinated to see how that story would play out. And I think Tony Gilroy wants to play with that as well, because he's mentioned multiple times at this point how Mon Mothma's journey is probably the most difficult, just given how, everyone else can kind of act in the shadows. She's so public about this. And once she goes, like in the first season, she says, I'm the first one to fall if this gets out. So I really want to see how this plays out. I'm going to say Lita lives at least for a while. Like maybe she dies at the end, but I'm going to say she lives through this. I'm just going to go ahead and make that prediction because I think it'd be more interesting for Mon Mothma's character.
Now, this is for me, a very fascinating thing to look forward to this season, to see how Tony Gilroy leverages Mon Mothma's family when she actually joins the rebellion. And like you said, seeing kind of what she has to give up, what she has to continue to in the fight, the thing she has to struggle with, and the way that the Empire is ripping apart families, and Mon Mothma is at the center of it. It's going to be so interesting to see. I don't know. It's kind of cold, I think, if they kill her. But
Right.
I think that in some way she'll be used as a pawn, or
I
try to be
agree.
used against Mon Mothma.
I don't know how cold it is though. If they could, I think it's more cold if you see them use her to try to get to Mon Mothma or try to mess with her. Like I would not like. What if we see? I do not think this is out of the realm of possibility for this show, because this show's shown it can go dark.
Yeah.
Mon Mothma leaves her family to join the rebellion, right? Mon Mothma leaves them. She joins the rebellion. She's worried sick. Lita doesn't really have information about Mon Mothma. She doesn't even tell her own daughter. The rebellion thinks, or the Empire thinks, that Dr. Gorst comes in. They give her one last chance, and we see Lita get Dr. Gorst interrogated to finding her. Mon Mothma sees what happens to her daughter at a later point in time. Like that would just be, it'd be sick to watch in a lot of ways. But at the same time, when you're talking about the leader of a rebellion against the Empire and the level of fear that they are putting down, that the Empire has on everyone, it would not shock me if the face of the rebellion, being Mon Mothma, like the public face of the rebellion at this point, is her. Obviously we know that Princess Leia in a lot of ways can kind of morph into that. I just wonder if, Lita, to some extent, they will try, like you said, to use her to get to Mon Mothma, and it could go very dark very quickly. And Mon's not only going to have lost her daughter, physically, she's not going to be with her anymore, but in like an emotional way, like her daughter's going to be completely unforgiving. Similar to how like Leia is not able to understand that, her father came back due to what, he put her through.
Yeah, it's going to be so amazing to watch. I mean, this isn't probably a story arc that a lot of people consider, but I've been really thinking about how that's going to be used. And we do see Mon Mothma obviously in Return of the Jedi, and in I believe she shows up in Ahsoka as well in the New Republic. And I'm curious to see, because I want to know what happened to her family in that time. So it's going to be
Mhm.
interesting to see. But I think
Let's
Lita will live.
let's go with Vel, and then, because of the relationship, let's also go with Cinta. So we're gonna go Vel and Cinta. Which one do you think both live, both die, one or the other? And if you had to pick, like, which one, where are you going?
I would say one of them is going to die. I don't think they're both going to die. I think one of them is going to die.
Which
I
one?
would probably say, I mean, if I was writing the story, I think it would be more interesting if Vel dies while Cinta is being true to the rebellion, because they had that
Mhm,
whole discussion about um, that the fight comes first, right? And then they're
mhm.
second. And to see her maybe do something that maybe puts Vel at risk, and then Vel ultimately dies, and then Cinta has to live with that and carry that with her. So that's I'm kind of saying what I would maybe do, or
Mhm.
kind of something that would be intriguing to me. But I don't think they're both making it out. But I think that one of them will. And my
I've
my money's on Cinta living.
I've been saying this for a while, and I probably am gonna be completely wrong on this. I think that there is a decent chance that both of them make it until the end. Like, make it until the end. I really think that there is a little chance, and I feel okay about maybe picking that. There's a level of romance that's going to be explored in this season between those two, between Cassian and Bix primarily. And there's already so much death in Rogue One. And we know we're going to see death at a certain level in this show. I feel like Tony Gilroy, I think he's going to maybe want like a through line of some level of happiness for some characters. Now, I'm not saying that their relationship survives the show. I have a feeling that both of these characters are going to live. I don't think either one of them are important enough on the grand scale of the rebellion to justify maybe a massive, arc for their death. But I also think they're important enough that, you could leave them in and people could write their own stories of how they impacted the rebellion moving forward. So I'm going to say that these two live. I'm gonna hold them fingers crossed that the relationship, they're able to work out their differences on, how to manage a relationship and the rebellion at the same time. Like we're gonna have fingers crossed on that. But Tom, you may be right. You may be right on that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think a lot of this we're judging by the prominence of these characters in the future. In the original
Mhm.
trilogy, I guess we didn't see any of them. So,
Right.
but if they were just kind of background, or I don't want to say background, but just smaller players than say
Mhm.
the Luthans
Right.
of Andor, then there's probably a good chance. But you might be right as well.
What about we'll go on the Empire side right now. What about Cyril? He's an interesting case because you see a lot of people online saying that Cyril's gonna be the turncoat, the Imperial turncoat that's gonna help the rebellion out. I've equally seen a lot of people say this guy's gonna die some loser death for the Empire, and he's gonna realize at the very end that he is just a insignificant person to them. He's done everything right by the book. He's given everything over to this scene to fascism, and ultimately they do not give a rip about him. And even Dedra just cuts him loose. Like I've seen it both ways here. But what are you thinking?
It's so hard for me when I come to this character because I've heard those theories of people speculating,
Hmm.
what could be, and I just keep leaning towards that he's not gonna make it through Andor. But I
Hmm.
hope again, I love his character. I love how I mean Tony Gilroy and his writing team created these characters that are just so epic and so nuanced. And to see
Right.
that he really wants to do something that he's proud of. He wants to climb that
Mhm.
ladder, and it's he's a tragic character. You see his home life and you see that not amounting to anything. So, I mean, I think I would love. I know people really go against characters, I guess, redeeming themselves. but I would love to see him redeem himself in some way. But I
Mhm.
just, even if he does, I don't think he's making it out of Andor.
There is a scene where in one of the trailers where Cassian says, "Welcome to the rebellion," and right next to him is like this brown jacket of sorts that looks similar to what we see him wearing in a lot of the trailers. And so part of me wonders, is that like him ushering him in? I don't think he's going to turn. If he's that character in that trailer, which is kind of what I'm wondering, is it Cassian is kind of taking him prisoner for a moment and he's like, Cyril's going to help him out of the situation. Like, you're going to get me out of here. You're going to lead me to wherever I need to go, and it's more of mocking him, like, welcome to the rebellion, like you don't want to be here but you are. I think he's going to die or live throughout this. And Lobo here, you kind of stole my thunder, but I feel like the end of the show is he's going to get a cushy desk job on the Death Star, some sort of weird technician job. He thinks he's made it. They usher him in, like Dedra gets him this cushy job, sends him away, and like that's how he ends up his arc. Is he's like this comfortable, whatever, makes a great Imperial salary on the Death Star, and we know that this guy's going to get absolutely boomed to smithereens by Luke Skywalker here in a matter of hours. I could see that. There's also the level of he dies like an ant being squashed on by the Imperial regime that doesn't care anything for him. But I think he lives through this series to die some nameless death on the Death Star, possibly.
That would be really, if he doesn't change his ways, that would be a really satisfying end for him. Uh, we'll probably get to it at some point, but there was another character I thought would die on the Death Star. But let's keep going, and we'll see if that person comes up.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, are you specifically meaning Dedra? Is that who
I
you're
I
referring to?
am.
I love this. I love this character. I
She is
absolutely love this character.
she is amazing. The performance that she gives is just so great because it's like you hate her, but you're rooting for her at the same time. It's strange. Like well, especially in the beginning when she's trying to gather all the facts about her theories of what's going on with the rebellion, and you kind of want her to like kind of peel that onion and get to it. But I was saying in my notes, I actually have in my notes that she's going to make it through and she's going to die on the Death Star.
I hate this character. Like I love to hate this character. I said I just
Right.
love. I love this character from the standpoint of, like you mentioned before, you're kind of cheering for her, and Luke and I have argued about this a lot because he's like, no, I love this character, and then he brought up like how you love to watch Thrawn be a villain and work through things out
Right.
and everything. But I have always been against any sort of comp to some of those villains because I never hated Thrawn. He never did anything to a character I love to the standpoint of I see them and I just have this deep loathing. I see Dedra now and I have this intense, this absolute vitriol disgust and disdain for her. And it's because they introduce her in such a way in the show where you're like, yeah, like rise in the ISB, like let's go, like take out the guy that's incompetent and arrogant, get him out of there, take over his stuff. And then you know that she's working against your people, but it's at the end when you just see how ruthless that she really is. It's not just ruthlessness towards the other Imperial agents in the ISB. No, it's ruthlessness towards anyone that gets in the way of her goals, and someone that's able to subject citizens to Dr. Gorst treatments and seem to relish in that. Oh my goodness, this just levels of evil that are beyond me. And I love Bix. Like, she's one of my favorite characters in this show. And I absolutely, like, truly believe that Dedra is going to get a horrible, horrible ending. I think Luthen's gonna take her out in like a blaze of glory sort of thing.
Yeah, once Dedra went after Bix, it was all over. Any of my love for her.
Yeah.
But like such a well-written character, you have to well-written villain, and they made her, just it was just so interesting. And then you see her vulnerability when she's in Ferrix at the riot, and then Cyril saves her life. So you see vulnerability. There's just so much to this
Mhm.
character. Um, yeah, so I still think she'll make it through somehow, but I think she's going to be very scarred from what happens with the Gorman massacre.
I think I think so. I don't know if that's going to. I've seen some people wonder if that changes her in some way, and that's how Krennic kind of comes in and she gets squashed out a little bit because she hesitates. But I could also see them easily saying she's just gonna dig her heels in deeper. She's gonna get even more entrenched in what the Imperial mantra is. And so we talked about Dedra, so like we might as well just go ahead and talk about Bix as well. Bix after Mon Mothma probably has the toughest road in this show, but maybe the most brutal one at the end because she's definitely going to die. I think in this series because she's going to be that love interest for Cassian that gets taken away in some sort of brutal fashion, or she's just like it's a catastrophic loss for them in one way or another. And she even mentions, if I'm going to give up everything, like I want to win. And I think she's like Luthen is going to give up everything and not be able to see the victory on the other side. But this one's probably gonna hurt more than any other character in the show.
Yeah, I mean, if I wish she was going to make it, but then we don't see her at all in Rogue One. There's no mention of her, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any chance she's going to live past season 2,
Right.
which is a shame. Such a great character. I
Mm-hmm.
love her relationship with Cassian. I love, kind of what they're doing with her as, when they escaped at the end of season 1. So it's going to be heartbreaking to see how that plays out.
It's brutal because I think that she's someone that embodies a lot of the rebellion in the standpoint that she was just someone working in her own business and trying to, feed the rebellion, little bits and pieces of what she could find. Now she's going to join this group and she's really going to go all in. Like she lost her home. For a while, she lost her mind as well. Like we saw what happened to her where she is at the end of season 1. So there's like a strong level of we're going to get like a full arc for this character in many ways. Like we've seen her at the beginning of that journey. We've seen her at very bad, like, deep lows at the end of season 1. I think we're going to see her reach some incredible rebel heights in this show, and then ultimately it's going to come crashing down on her. So let's do one more here, and then we'll call it good. Let's go with our man Brasso. Last one. What kind of death do you see for Brasso, or is he someone that you see living through this whole thing?
I told you in the other podcast that I want to see him fighting at the Battle of Endor.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see him make it through. I think there's a chance he will. He's a smaller player in the rebellion. I think he could easily fit in. And it would be great because I think he would carry with him everything about Cassian and what Cassian stood for. And I think it would propel him forward as a great member of the Rebel Alliance. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to call it now that I think he's going to live.
I love that. I love the idea of him being able to survive, even though all signs would point to him biting the dust. But he's one I could easily see living. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, where if he survives the first arc, like that first opening intro to the series, I think it's a really strong chance that he makes his way through to the finish line. Because if there was going to be a character that bit the dust early on in those first 3 episodes to kind of set the stage for what Cassian's journey through this season is going to be. Brasso's probably your best bet. I forget the name of the son of the other guy that was in the shop that was helping with Bix. I forget his name, but if he were to die, like I don't think that's enough of a jolt for Cassian as a character. Bix is not going to die that early on. I think there's way too much to explore there. Same with Luthen. He's got to build it up. So that really leaves Brasso as the only viable candidate. So I think if he survives the first arc, he's going to make it through all the way until the end. It was Pax, but what's Pax's son's name? I cannot remember his son's name.
I think I was looking it up before and I was trying to find it.
So last one, Kino Loy. We know that Kino's going to be in this. I was very surprised when he was coming back in season 2 because I was pretty much satisfied with his arc in season 1. I felt like it was just a Shakespearean way for him to go out to lead the revolt, lead the breakout, but know that he's never going to see the other side of it because he can't swim. But Keenan Lloyd's gonna be back for season 2. I could see him having a tremendous Blaze of Glory moment.
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing. I mean, has it officially been confirmed that he's coming back?
He's in season 2.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, he was such a great character. But like you said, his arc was so great in season 1 that it is kind of tough. I don't think he would make it out of season 2. And I don't know how big a role he's going to have.
The only thing I want to see is him and Krennic have a war of words at some point. Because I could see Krennic showing up and wondering why his Death Star machine parts have been delayed in getting to his manufacturing area. And he shows up. They're like, well, this guy's the one that led the slave rebellion, basically, because they're basically slaves on there, the prisoner rebellion. And I would love to see Mendelsohn and Andy Serkis have a battle royale of words on Star Wars. That would just be amazing for 5 minutes. Like that's all I need. Just give me like 3 to 5 minutes of those two.
Krennic just critiquing his shoddy workmanship.
Oh, that'd be great. Anyways, everyone, thanks for hopping in. We're all really excited for Andor season 2. There's going to be so much more to come from this show, and it's just going to be great to be along for the ride. Go ahead on Apple and Spotify. If you could leave us a little review if you're listening there, that'd be great. Also, if you want to go back, check out Tom and I did a podcast on the greatest space battles in Star Wars. We went through the whole saga and just talked about all the big space battles that happen. What we loved about them, those random side characters that we had a really good time with, that we don't see very often or never see again. So that's a fun one. Luke and I will have another episode of the Timeline Show. Episode 48 comes out this weekend. We'll be talking about the audio drama Tempest Runner, which I have about 80 to 90 pages left. I'll probably just finish it tonight and be good to go for the podcast. So everyone, thanks for hopping in. Tom, as always, it is good to see you, my good sir. For Light and Life, everyone, remember that we are all the Republic.